Now that we've debunked Sajid's claims, let's move on to another major issue. Many madkhalis are agents of governments. This is why they're rightfully considered bootlickers. I'm not saying that every madkhali is a government agent. I'm not saying that Sajid is a government agent, but clearly some of these madkhalis are working for certain agencies. And there's a lot of proof for this. But before looking at the proof, let's consider some of the primary characteristics of the madkhalis and how they operate online. Number one, they work hard to block any criticism of the secular rulers in the Muslim world. Number two, they legitimate the killing of Muslims who criticize the secular rulers. This is why the madkhalis love using the word khawarij or khariji. They use the word khawarij because they know that that makes a person's blood halal. It justifies killing. The madkhalis could say, "Hey Daniel, you're criticizing the ruler because you're a jahil or you're a deviant." But they don't do that. They always have to add the label khariji or khawarij. This is precisely for the purpose of Islamically legitimizing lethal actions by secular tyrants against their Muslim critics. Also, madkhalis focus on the secondary and tertiary issues of deen and not the usul. This is again deliberate. They want to rip the community apart and cause as much division as possible. Disagreeing with other Muslims is not enough for them. They have to disassociate and boycott. Sajid, for example, could have easily said, "Look, I have a difference of opinion with Daniel on this minor issue," and left it at that. But no, Sajid has to go back and delete any video with me and make this huge spectacle of washing his hands clean of me. Did I violate some major principle of the deen? Did I innovate an entirely new position in Islam? Or did I distort the deen for the sake of selling out? Did I call for reforming Islam? No, but it doesn't matter for madkhalis. What matters to them is putting the issue of criticizing the ruler at the center of their aqidah, and then making their entire da'wah about attacking whoever doesn't agree on this one issue. The other characteristic of madkhalis is that whenever they see Muslims collaborating across different madhahib or manahij, they quickly attack that. This is part of their strategy to create as much division between orthodox, traditional Muslims as possible. Another characteristic is that they will not agree to debate. They are fine typing up tweet after tweet, but if you challenge them to a debate or to discuss issues openly, they reject those offers. The thing is, this particular combination of traits is unprecedented in Islamic history. These traits combined are unique to the madkhalis, and the reason is the madkhalis are a product of intelligence agencies. Their cult has been designed by intelligence agencies as a kind of a virus with the purpose of causing as much division and infighting amongst conservative Sunni Muslims as possible. Part of the proof for this is that there is official documentation recommending the US government secretly fund madkhalis. Consider the figure of Jarrett Brackman, a high-level US counterterrorism official affiliated with the CIA, who also served as director of research at West Point's Combating Terrorism Center. West Point is the top US military academy training its army officers. In his book, Global Jihadism, page 29, Brackman explains the US military's understanding of who exactly the madkhalis are. Quote, Arab states have generally viewed the madkhali Salafists as palatable, much like the establishment Salafists, given their endorsement of secular and democratic forms of government and their unflinching support for local Arab regimes. With Saudi backing, the madkhalis have firmly entrenched themselves globally, operating out of most Western countries. They have also gone online, so Muslims anywhere around the world can download madkhalis' teachings. In Saudi Arabia, members of the group are more commonly referred to as jamis and are known for their hostility to any political tendency that opposes the authorities. What this is saying is that authorities in the Gulf fund and install the madkhalis on a global scale. But there is more. West Point produces strategic recommendations for U.S. military and national security. In a report published in 2006 titled Stealing Al-Qaeda's Playbook, the authors make a very interesting recommendation to counter radical jihad. Quote, "The United States should very carefully and unobtrusively support Muslim religious leaders and movements that can effectively compete with the jihadi movement in terms of mass appeal and popularity among the youth. Naturally, many of the most effective competitors will not be friendly to the United States and the West, but if the bottom line is a rejection of violence against the United States and its allies, they should be supported. The difficulty comes in identifying the right leader or group. The US could discreetly fund mainstream Salafi figures like Madkhali, who are effective in siphoning off support from jihadis, and figures who do not advocate violence, for example, by paying for publications, lectures, new schools. This will be effective in the short term. Again, it is essential that the US hand not be seen." The US government is using the word jihadi to refer to any Muslim who supports political Islam. Any Muslim who wants to live in a country ruled by the Sharia, as opposed to liberal secularism, is considered an extremist and a threat by the US government and its secular allies in the Muslim world. Therefore, the strategic recommendation from US counter-extremism officials is to support and secretly fund the madkhalis, as we just read. And it makes sense. The US needs to keep secular tyrants in full control. Any kind of criticism of these tyrants will delegitimize those regimes. So they secretly fund madkhalis to attack any critic of these regimes and spread the view that it is not only haram, but actually a deviance or khuruj to raise a peep against any ruler. The behavior of madkhalis makes it very apparent that they are agents. Let's briefly consider one example. One of the main English-speaking madkhalis on social media is Faris al-Hamadi. As recently as 2015, Hamadi was just a gym owner in Dubai who coached people on CrossFit. For some years, his content was mainly in the Arabic language. But for some reason, 5 years ago, he suddenly started making videos in English and posting TikTok videos aimed at English-speaking Muslims, teaching them basic things like how to make wudu or how to pray. What's interesting is that intermixed with his videos about how to make wudu, Hamadi throws in a video about the top 4 Khawarij of our times and how the best thing the ruler of the UAE ever did was throw the Muslim Brotherhood in prison. In a 2020 interview, Dayoooth introduces Faris by saying he worked for the government and was involved with, quote, training other governments.
14 years experience in the corporate world. He does training workshops as a part of a government program for other countries' governments,
It is not clear what Faris was training governments in. A lot of questions can be asked about Hamadi and his connection to the UAE government. But we won't get into all the details for this video. But a good sample to see exactly what Faris al-Hamadi is all about is how he dedicates a whole video to brazenly promoting the normalization of ties between Israel and the UAE.
About the normalization, the treaty that happened between the UAE and Israel. Treaties and relationships, political relationships with one country to another, this is the responsibility of not us, of the ruler.
He is referring to the Abraham Accords, which we know is a pure Zionist product designed to put Muslims under the boot of Israel.
Brothers and sisters, consider this, and this is very important. Don't let your emotions control you. Emotions don't drive and create facts. These big complex matters, this is like I said, it's not up to us to discuss and analyze and give opinions on. As far as Islam is concerned, normalization with the Jews is actually permissible, and it's actually the responsibility of the ruler. He sees whether this is beneficial or not.
This is how this agent throws our Palestinian brothers and sisters under the bus in order to deflect criticism from his masters in the UAE. It is absolutely disgusting, but he doesn't even stop there.
How do Palestinians handle betrayal of Saudi and UAE with Israel? There is no betrayal. We're supporting Palestinians all the way. The betrayal is happening from the Palestinians themselves, actually. The betrayal is happening from the Palestinians themselves, actually.
In this short video that Hamadi uploaded, he is asked how Palestinians handle the betrayal of the Saudi and UAE governments in their diplomatic and economic partnership with Israel. This smug agent smiles through his teeth and says, Saudi and UAE support Palestine, but the betrayal is coming from Palestinians. How did the Palestinians betray Saudi and UAE, Faris? Did they betray you by getting bombed? Did they betray you by getting their children murdered and their homes destroyed? How exactly did the Palestinians betray you, Faris? How did they betray Saudi and the UAE? Please explain that for us. Interesting.